The pace at which your life is leveling up has turned into a spectacle for the very ones who bet on your silence. They thought your light could be muffled with enough distraction, enough noise, but now they're watching you become the headline of a story they can't spin anymore. A quiet storm has been gathering behind your presence, and today, it hits with full force. While someone kept playing chess with your name, assuming you were just another pawn, the board flipped. A presence you didn't even see coming, a soul who's been studying the battlefield in silence, is stepping forward to call checkmate on your behalf. And when they speak, the truth won't just land. It'll roar. This isn't just about vindication. It's about justice sculpted by unseen hands. Everything that was whispered behind your back is now echoing in rooms they can't escape. Not because you fought dirty, but because the divine has a memory, and it's been taking notes with precision. You were never in this to prove yourself. That's what scares them. While they were performing for applause, you were aligning with purpose. Now your alignment is calling out every distortion like a mirror that refuses to lie. And the lies? They're evaporating like mist under sunlight. The one who tried to rewrite your worth is now being forced to witness how the narrative crumbles under the weight of your truth. Not because you retaliated, but because you radiated. And radiance exposes what manipulation can only temporarily hide. All of this isn't just happening to lift you. It's happening to reveal you. You are the evidence that grace doesn't need approval, that authenticity doesn't need defense, and that alignment doesn't ask permission to rise. They didn't see you coming because you weren't performing. You were preparing. Now the script flips, and the curtain doesn't close on you. It closes on them. And behind it, a reality where your name isn't just safe, it's sacred. Some people carry an energy that doesn't knock, it breaks through locked doors without trying. That's what's happening with your presence right now. Someone you've never spoken to is feeling pulled toward a frequency that echoes their soul's original blueprint. No introductions needed. No contact required. The signal you send travels without wires, it simply lands. And someone else has noticed. This connection, raw and unfiltered, has rattled the cage of someone obsessed with control. There's a fear that arises when something pure can't be contained, especially when it stirs recognition in someone they desperately want to keep tethered. It's not about logic. It's not even about proximity. Something ancient between you and this person is cutting through the noise, and that signal is growing louder, despite every attempt to mute it. False narratives have been planted like traps in a forest, designed not to attack you directly, but to delay discovery. The goal? Interfere before the truth gets too close. While illusions were being carefully designed, you were outgrowing the need for anyone's permission. You weren't watching your name, you were building something so magnetic that even lies began to orbit you. Attempts to contain your essence only made it impossible to ignore. Your influence doesn't walk into a room, it changes the pressure in it. Even in silence, something about you demands attention. And recently, that intensity has reached a point of no return. Those who tried to mold perception are losing their grip, because people are beginning to feel what's real, not just hear about it. Behind the curtain, a plan has been unraveling. The person who fears what your presence might activate in another has been working overtime to redirect the story. Their desperation shows in the cracks, in their eyes when your name surfaces, and their tone when questions get asked. There's movement happening they can't trace, and they know it. A gathering was selected as the stage, one with laughter on the surface, but a hidden script beneath. There, behind fake smiles and polished glasses, something is being prepared. Maybe a reveal. Maybe an ambush. Maybe a trap built with whispers and practiced timing. The atmosphere has been rehearsed, hoping that timing will do what truth could never accomplish. What they don't know is that no performance, no setup, no strategy survives proximity to truth. When energy is real, it cuts through even the most convincing illusion. And this time, the illusion is fraying at the seams, not because someone's fighting back, but because the truth is finally waking up where it was always meant to be seen. If you've been touched by God's goodness, don't keep it to yourself. Click Super Thank You and sow a gift of $40 or more to help spread His light. Your giving becomes a ripple of grace, blessing hearts and building His kingdom. Let His overflow pour through you. What looks like chance often hides precision. And what feels like coincidence may just be the universe placing every piece where it needs to fall, without telling anyone what's really coming. The gathering starts the way gatherings do. Smiles are exchanged like currency, laughter moves between rooms, and the one who thrives in shallow waters begins to swim freely, convinced they're still in control. They move like a conductor at a performance only they can hear. Every comment is sharpened to destabilize. Every smirk is designed to redirect attention. They float from circle to circle, injecting distortion into the air with the confidence of someone who's done this before, someone who believes they've already won. And then it happens, the unraveling. One choice. One action. One miscalculation from a hand that thought it had everyone fooled. Whether it's a cold statement laced with venom, or a move meant to humiliate that goes horribly wrong, what was meant to go unnoticed becomes a flashpoint. The room doesn't just notice, it changes temperature. A silence enters that no one can ignore. Eyes meet across the space. Conversations die mid-sentence. People feel it before they understand it. The carefully curated identity collapses like a costume soaked in truth. The disguise doesn't slip, it implodes. And what's left standing in the wreckage is no longer a person people trust, but a warning of what manipulation looks like when it runs out of stories to tell. The air becomes charged with something else now, awareness. Observers start connecting the dots. Faces shift. Someone checks their own memory and realizes, wait, that's not the first time something felt off. The one who's been pulling strings finally feels the rope tighten around their own script. There's no recovering. Only exposure. And just when the moment seems like it's about to dissolve, it crystallizes into something more. The very person they tried hardest to mute, the one they've been steering from the shadows, rises. And not with rage, but with truth. Their voice isn't loud, but it lands like thunder. They speak words that cut through the illusion like daylight cutting through smoke. No name needs to be mentioned. No argument needs to be had. But in front of everyone, something undeniable is spoken: boundaries. Clarity. The end of the spell. And in that moment, the silence between you and the one who's been feeling your pull becomes the loudest voice in the room. Not because you demanded it, but because destiny doesn't need permission to be recognized. Some illusions don't fade, they fracture. And when they break, they do it loudly, revealing not just the lie, but the desperation behind it. The performance crumbles in full view. What was once protected by charm and manipulation now sits exposed in the middle of a room full of people who finally realize they've been props in a one-person show that fed on silence and submission. Power that depends on confusion never lasts. The moment someone steps out of the trance, everything built on their silence collapses. What happens next feels less like an accident and more like a cosmic chain reaction, deliberate, precise, and irreversible. The one who believed they were untouchable finds themselves face to face with the very accountability they thought they'd escaped forever. Systems, both seen and unseen, begin to respond. There is no need for drama, the truth itself does the dismantling. Whispers turn into questions. Eyes that once looked away now look directly at the source of harm. The fragile tower of influence buckles under its own weight. And the person once held captive by this manipulation? They don't just walk away, they wake up. And for the first time in years, the fog clears. The irony couldn't be sharper. What began as an obsession disguised as vigilance has now backfired into revelation. Every time your name was dragged into conversations with suspicion, it created curiosity. Every insult became an invitation. Every accusation planted a seed of wonder. What was intended to scare someone away from you only carved a deeper path toward you. Now, the veil has lifted. Curiosity becomes pursuit. Energy that was once distorted by someone else's voice is now being felt directly. The person who was meant to avoid you is now discovering you on their own terms, with their own mind. What once felt like a dream they couldn't explain is now becoming the clarity they can't ignore. Interference only stretched the connection, like tension on a cord that snaps back with force. The very resistance designed to prevent reunion has reversed course. And now there's acceleration. Movement. Momentum. No more delay. The more they tried to stop it, the faster it came together. What they feared most is now unfolding faster than even destiny anticipated. And what about you? You weren't chasing, proving, or defending. You were simply becoming. Rooted in purpose. Immune to distractions. While they schemed, you grew. While they spun stories, you built something no one could fabricate. You didn't need to shout. Your alignment did all the speaking. Some people don't rise, they erupt. And when they do, everything around them rearranges itself to accommodate the new atmosphere. That's what's happening now. Your efforts are no longer quiet victories in the shadows, they're becoming undeniable events in the open. People who once looked past you are now studying your every move. The silence that used to greet your gifts has turned into applause you didn't ask for. What was once tolerated in darkness is now crumbling in daylight. Spaces that once protected control and silence have begun rewriting their own rules. A cultural shift is happening under the surface, not because anyone forced it, but because the weight of truth became impossible to ignore. Now, instead of secrets, stories are being exchanged. Instead of fear, clarity is catching fire. There's a deep unraveling taking place in someone who thought obedience meant love. The person who once moved like a puppet in someone else's story is learning to write their own pages again. There's no overnight healing here, but there is movement. New boundaries are being drawn. Legal steps. Emotional safeguards. And for the first time, their life isn't defined by someone else's grip. Those who once circled the abuser like satellites now scramble to save themselves. The structure they upheld is collapsing in slow motion, and no one wants to be seen standing inside it. Their alliances are dissolving, not out of conscience, but out of fear. What they helped maintain is now a liability. And while they scatter, fate is weaving a new alignment behind the scenes that pulls you closer to someone you were never meant to be separated from. Connections don't always begin with intimacy. Sometimes they begin with vision. A shared mission. A moment of collaboration that builds trust before anything romantic takes shape. That's the beauty of this unfolding, nothing feels forced. The storyline isn't skipping steps. And as revelations spread, more and more pieces come into view, a pattern long hidden is finally breaking the surface. Each new voice that rises adds weight to the truth. What began as a single crack is now a full break in the illusion. Others are stepping forward, sharing stories that echo what's already been exposed. What was once dismissed as drama is now being recognized as a systemic strategy. And while all of this unfolds, eyes that never knew your name are now drawn in by the integrity of your journey. Comparison is no longer necessary, the difference speaks for itself. While others played roles, you built substance. While deception dressed itself as concern, you moved with quiet certainty. The rewards that were delayed now find you freely, because nothing genuine can be blocked forever. The contrast isn't just seen, it's felt. And the path forward belongs to the one who never stopped showing up in truth. Certain lives are built in silence, but when they rise, they make everything around them echo. What was delayed is now returning multiplied, not just returned, but amplified with grace and power. Every attempt to slow your journey only accelerated it in the unseen layers of time. And now, the one meant to walk beside you is reaching out, not to fill a void, but to honor a connection they can no longer pretend not to feel. A new internal structure is taking form in someone who once lived beneath another's shadow. They are not just preparing for a meeting, they are cleansing themselves of years of psychological fog, dissolving emotional contracts that never honored their truth. The one who tried to silence their voice is now forgotten at the edge of the crowd, watching relevance slip between their fingers. Every mess designed to scatter truth has now done the opposite. It gathered clarity like magnets pulling metal from dust. The storm they intended to stir has instead cleared the air for new awareness. That voice which once whispered your name in jealousy has unintentionally become the very frequency that awakened destiny. What once divided has now become a map leading back to alignment. There's no such thing as coincidence when orchestration this precise unfolds. People who once saw you through a distorted lens are now recognizing the depth they overlooked. What makes you different is no longer a mystery, it's becoming a standard. Integrity is louder than attention, and your actions have carried a resonance that manipulation could never imitate. The one who was meant to find you is no longer dreaming, they're deciding. Not because they're enchanted, but because they finally see what's real. Their gestures will be steady. Their intentions clean. Not hurried by fantasy, but driven by memory, as if something ancient was always waiting to reconnect at the right frequency. Everything that tried to bend your path has been refashioned as steps beneath your feet. Every insult has become a verse in your triumph. Every shadow thrown at you has become a spotlight. You didn't retaliate, you refined. You didn't chase, you became. And now, what once opposed you watches from a distance as the wind it tried to steal becomes the current that carries you forward. You're not just being noticed, you're being remembered. As if the world is catching up to what your soul always knew. The chapter that began in confusion is ending in clarity. And somewhere beyond what's visible, the one who once felt you in glimpses is stepping fully into the light of your reality, not to save you, but to stand beside you as you continue building a life no storm could undo. Some souls aren't just speaking, they're awakening others without knowing it. The way you express yourself has been striking dormant nerves, like echo tones only certain hearts can hear. Without chasing clout or metrics, you've been leaving breadcrumbs of alignment that guide people back to themselves. And the ripple effect? It's shaking timelines, drawing in both genuine seekers and the ones obsessed with decoding what they'll never replicate. You've never sold image, only truth. And truth, no matter how softly spoken, reshapes everything it touches. While others script personas and perform relevance like it's theater, you've quietly become the blueprint. No gimmicks. No shortcuts. Just frequency too rich to fake and too real to deny. People don't just look at what you create, they feel it. They don't scroll past you. They pause. They absorb. They carry your words with them into rooms where your name isn't even known yet. What you release isn't noise, it's nourishment. That's why some are drawn in love, and others in discomfort. Either way, they can't ignore it. Those watching closely often do so for the wrong reasons. But here's the paradox, even hate becomes a form of service when you walk in divine rhythm. Those who try to measure your essence through analytics end up fueling the very momentum they hoped would stall. Obsession becomes free labor. Criticism becomes coded promotion. Every glance meant to diminish you turns into another candle lighting your path. You don't adjust to fit the system, you reshape the current just by being yourself. Algorithms are built to amplify trends. You're built to start them. While others chase virality through manufactured moments, you create movements through authenticity so pure it rearranges digital space to accommodate it. The metrics follow, because alignment always magnetizes reach. Something strange has been happening for someone watching you, not just in passing, but with quiet intensity. Your voice resonates like something they've forgotten but can't unfeel. They find themselves revisiting your words without knowing why. It's not fascination. It's memory. A spiritual familiarity cloaked in content. Every post lands like a private message from a place they thought was gone. And no matter how far they are, how unlikely the connection seems, your work keeps finding them. Your thoughts, your timing, your tone, it's not just random appeal. It's recognition. And somewhere beyond logic, they're realizing they've been called, not by the platform, but by the pulse behind your presence. Some frequencies don't shout. They hum. They whisper to the parts of people that language can't reach. Without trying, your essence has been imprinting itself into moments of stillness, moments where someone out there pauses, not knowing why your words feel like a mirror. Every offering you've made has been less about visibility and more about invisible threads tightening across unseen timelines. What others saw as random curiosity was something deeper unfolding. The whispers of criticism only triggered more intrigue in those meant to witness you. Without strategy, you've been forming quiet alliances with people who don't need convincing. They feel the pulse of truth when they encounter it. These aren't followers. They're guardians in disguise. Behind the scenes, while noise attempted to distract, something sacred began building. Your work moved faster, not by force, but by rhythm. Emails arrived from unfamiliar names carrying familiar alignment. Collaborators surfaced like constellations rearranging themselves to reflect your inner growth. You didn't chase these shifts. You magnetized them. What once felt like slow-burning effort suddenly flared into visibility. Ideas that were once dismissed began circulating as revolutionary. The very traits some labeled too different became the exact flavor the collective now craves. You didn't adapt to fit the market adjusted to make space for you. As this wave swelled, you didn't ride it with ego, you steered it with clarity. You set a new standard without needing to explain yourself. Instead of playing within systems designed to dilute originality, you forged your own current. And it worked, because energy always speaks louder than image. Your rise began attracting peers who move with precision and integrity, the kind of people who don't respond to hype, but to frequency. These weren't social climbers. These were architects of something lasting. The connections formed weren't built on negotiation, but mutual recognition. What emerged was a sphere of power no deception could imitate or invade. Those who truly observe can see the pattern. Authentic builders gather around you, while those rooted in illusion seem repelled by your presence. You didn't have to call them out, your clarity did it for you. And what's most remarkable? The impact you've made hasn't just uplifted your journey. It's opened gates for others. While some tried to hoard influence, you turned your growth into a rising tide, one that lifts everyone who's brave enough to rise with you. Some spirits don't climb by stepping over others, they rise by lifting the entire floor. That's what set you apart. As your influence expanded, you didn't gatekeep your light. You became a bridge. You extended your reach to elevate others who carried the same frequency, and in doing so, you multiplied your impact rather than hoarding it. That selfless expansion didn't go unnoticed by the universe or by those watching you in silence. While you poured energy into collaboration, someone else watched from the sidelines, unsettled. Not by your success, but by how easily it flowed from sincerity. They had spent years building power through quiet manipulation and calculated alliances, while you built momentum through radical transparency and genuine support. The difference wasn't just visible, it was undeniable. That contrast became harder and harder to ignore. The person meant to walk with you noticed how your presence elevated the room, not dominated it. They observed the way you championed others, the way you created space without needing the spotlight. Your example made clear just how performative the manipulator's empire truly was, a structure propped up by coercion rather than mutual respect. And then came the unraveling. Not from conflict, but from clarity. A social setting turned into a stage where truth could no longer be masked. The very tactics that once inspired loyalty now sparked discomfort. People began seeing not through accusations, but through the raw transparency of someone's unguarded behavior. Masks didn't just slip, they shattered under the pressure of proximity to truth. The exposure spread fast, like ink through water. Observers started rethinking past interactions. Quiet suspicions transformed into understanding. Patterns long ignored suddenly revealed a consistent thread, not of leadership, but of quiet domination masked as care. What once felt like isolated experiences began forming a mosaic of misuse and emotional sabotage. The one who had been under their spell the longest saw it all clearly now. Every moment of doubt, every gaslit interaction, every time they had been made to feel unstable for sensing something was off, it all made painful sense now. But that pain was cleansing. The weight of internalized blame was finally replaced with the clarity of knowing they were never the problem. While the storm cleared around them, you never swayed. You didn't feed the flames or revel in their collapse. You stayed rooted, grounded, intentional. And that, your refusal to trade purpose for petty victories, became your loudest testimony. You didn't weaponize your platform. You never needed to. Your very existence, steady and unbothered, revealed who was truly powerful all along. There's a rare kind of power that reveals itself not in how loudly one responds, but in how consistently one remains unmoved. You didn't defend yourself, you didn't need to. Your stillness was not surrender. It was self-assurance. While others scrambled to narrate their innocence or broadcast their side of the story, you stayed rooted in purpose. And that quiet discipline echoed louder than any reaction ever could. Those watching saw your restraint as elegance, not hesitation. What unfolded next made the contrast impossible to ignore. As someone else clung to influence like it was oxygen, your refusal to engage only highlighted the difference between someone anchored in truth and someone addicted to illusion. Their scramble only deepened the divide, not between you and them, but between illusion and reality. It no longer felt like random chaos. It felt like choreography guided by something bigger. Every ripple of exposure met a mirror. Every piece of harm they engineered returned in poetic balance. Their attempts to corner others into isolation rebounded as distance from the very people they tried to control. The bridges they tried to burn for others collapsed under their own weight. Meanwhile, everything they tried to prevent in your life, from opportunity to connection, began multiplying with inexplicable precision. Progress came like clockwork, not in trickles, but in synchronized waves. Approvals, partnerships, platforms, all aligned in perfect timing, as if the universe had been holding them back on purpose, waiting for the moment your silence would speak the loudest. Their unraveling didn't just coincide with your elevation, it became the backdrop to it. A final contrast in the great reveal. And when the dust cleared, you weren't merely surviving, you were expanding. Space once used to shield yourself from sabotage was now liberated for creation. Focus, once fragmented by defense, now belonged entirely to growth. Audiences you didn't expect were arriving. Conversations you hadn't chased were circling around your insight. The territory around your influence was widening, and it wasn't just reactionary, it was destined. Your consistency became a beacon. No shortcuts. No compromise. The person silently observing your journey began to see clearly, your alignment was never circumstantial. It was a lifestyle. You didn't bend when invisible eyes weren't watching. You carried the same integrity in darkness that now shines in your light. What you've built isn't luck. It's legacy. And here's the irony that only divine balance could author. The same force that tried to shrink you became the weight that built your strength. The tension? It carved your discipline. The betrayal? It fine-tuned your discernment. And every resistance they threw at your path didn't stop your momentum, it trained you for it. You didn't just rise despite the fire. You became unshakable because of it.